Room 55 of the British Museum in London houses a small fragment of fired clay. This object bears the catalogue number K.108 and belongs to the famous Kuyunjik collection. It is a tablet about 4 inches long, covered with dense rows of cuneiform characters. Its surface bears a text that modern scholars refer to as a historical document about the fall of an empire. The cuneiform describes the complete destruction of a once thriving city, which occurred around 2154 BCE. To understand the situation, we need to carefully examine the physical details of this ancient artifact. The clay tablet weighs just over half a pound and fits easily in the palm of an adult's hand. Its edges are chipped, but the central part of the text has been preserved in excellent condition. The characters were carved with a reed stylus with mathematical precision, which speaks to the scribe's high level of professionalism. This person was clearly recording real events, not simply inventing a terrifying tale for future generations. For many years, this artifact was considered merely a collection of religious metaphors and poetic exaggerations. Researchers believed that the ancient Sumerians were simply trying to explain the decline of their civilization as the wrath of the gods. However, new archaeological data is forcing us to reconsider established views on this particular written monument. The words on the clay are beginning to match physical specimens from recent excavations with frightening accuracy. We are witnessing a direct intersection of ancient linguistics and modern geological stratigraphy. The city of Agade was the center of a vast empire that stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. Its influence spanned territories from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean coast. The capital's wealth was measured in thousands of pounds of gold and vast reserves of agricultural produce. And yet, at a single specific moment, this metropolis ceased to exist physically. The causes of this collapse are still the subject of heated debate among academics. The text on the tablet makes no mention of any advancing enemy armies or prolonged, grueling sieges. It focuses exclusively on a sudden cataclysm that came from the sky by the will of the god Enlil. The destruction is described as an instantaneous process that left the local inhabitants no chance of survival. The city's streets were covered in ash, and the rivers filled with a substance the text refers to as bitter water. These details are crucial to our further investigation. The main goal of this investigation is to objectively analyze the available physical evidence. We will not speculate. We will simply compare the text of the artifact with geological anomalies. Tablet K.108 is merely a starting point in a long chain of physical clues. It provides us with clear guidelines for searching for traces of some large-scale destructive event. We will now attempt to determine exactly what these traces look like in reality. According to the generally accepted scientific paradigm, the Akkadian Empire fell victim to large-scale climate change. Researchers refer to this period as the event of 4.2 millennia, pointing to a global drought. It is believed that precipitation levels dropped dramatically, leading to widespread crop failure across thousands of acres. Cities ran out of food, the economy collapsed, and the centralized government lost control over the territories. This model describes the slow and agonizing process of the decline of a once great civilization. This interpretation is well-founded. It is quite logical to assume that an agrarian society of the Bronze Age is entirely dependent on a stable climate and rainfall. Analysis of sedimentary rocks from nearby lakes does indeed show a decrease in humidity during the specified period. People began migrating south, fleeing famine and the depletion of water resources. Historical chronicles of other peoples also record certain climatic difficulties during the same time. But the official collapse model does not explain the physical condition of the ruins in northern Mesopotamia. In particular, it cannot explain the presence of thick layers of baked earth in certain ancient cities. Drought does not leave layers of vitrified soil, the formation of which requires extreme temperatures. The absence of rain cannot melt the clay masonry of the walls into a state of solid glass. Here, we encounter an obvious contradiction between the theory of slow decline and the picture of instantaneous destruction. A difference of 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit is critical to understanding the nature of the cataclysm that occurred. This is not merely a minor statistical error, it is an insurmountable physical barrier to natural combustion processes. No drought can cause sand to melt and turn into a homogeneous glassy mass. This requires a directed source of colossal thermal energy, acting in a fraction of a second. Official science prefers to sidestep this thermal paradox, focusing exclusively on the climate. Furthermore, the geological record shows a clear boundary between normal soil and the zone of destruction. A layer of ash and slag appears in the stratigraphy suddenly, without any transitional stages or precursors. If cities had died from a prolonged drought, we would see a gradual deterioration of the cultural layer. We would find traces of long attempts to survive in changing conditions, repairs, and the reconstruction of buildings. Instead, we see a sharp break in life, preserved as molten stone in the streets. We do not deny the fact of climate change during that historical period in the Middle East. We merely point out that drought was not the sole factor that destroyed the Akkadian Empire. There is a specific body of evidence pointing to the use of energy of unprecedented destructive power. This evidence has been documented, evaluated, and placed in sealed containers for long-term storage. The time has come to open these containers and examine the facts without preconceived theoretical biases. Our search begins with a detailed study of artifacts housed in the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. There, in the archives of the Babylonian section, lie numerous fragments of a text known as the Curse of Agade. These tablets were discovered during large-scale excavations in Nippur in the late 19th century. The documents date to the period immediately following the end of the reign of the famous dynasty of Sargon the Great. They describe the events that led to the fall of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. Traditional scholarship views these cuneiform tablets exclusively as a vivid example of Sumerian poetry. It is believed that the authors of the text simply used rich metaphors to describe a socio-economic crisis. It is argued that the wrath of the gods is a standard literary device for explaining a ruler's political defeat. This interpretation seems logical in the context of studying ancient mythological systems and primitive beliefs. Gods often served as personifications of natural forces or historical circumstances in the literature of that time. However, upon closer reading, we notice elements that do not fit within the framework of metaphors. The problem lies in the extreme technical precision of the linguistic formulations used by Sumerian scribes. The text literally describes fire that cannot be extinguished by water, which contradicts experience with conventional incendiary agents. Ancient wars were fought using oil and wood, which were easily extinguished by large volumes of water. The appearance of a term for an unquenchable flame indicates an encounter with something fundamentally different. The total weight of the tablets bearing this text, scattered across various museums around the world, is about 40 pounds. This is not a single, fanciful tale, but a document copied many times over, which was considered extremely important to preserve. The Sumerians rewrote this story over and over, striving to convey the details of the catastrophe to future generations of Mesopotamian inhabitants. They recorded the chronicle of events with maniacal precision, without changing a single character in key passages. Such an approach is characteristic of recording historical facts, not of rewriting fictional collections of fairy tales. The description of the cataclysm also includes a mention of strange changes in the composition of the atmosphere. The text states that the sun in the heavens ceased to bring joy, hinting at an unnatural darkening of the horizon above the city. This phenomenon often accompanies massive emissions of ash and dust during powerful, large-scale thermal explosions. The light is blocked by a dense cloud of particles rising several miles above the Earth's surface. The metaphor completely loses its poetic meaning and becomes a dry, meteorological observation by an eyewitness. We have in our hands a translated document that openly declares the use of atypical weapons. It uses terms characteristic of the description of high-energy events involving the release of enormous amounts of excess heat. These tablets lie quietly in the University of Pennsylvania's repository, available for study by any qualified specialist. The question is whether we are ready to take the words of the ancient scribes seriously. To answer it, we need to find physical traces of this unquenchable fire in the earth itself. In the 1970s, a team from Yale University began excavations in northeastern Syria. The focus of their research was the hill of Tel Leilan, beneath which lay the ruins of the ancient city of Shubat Enlil. The work was led by archaeologist Harvey Weiss, who intended to study the history of urbanization in northern Mesopotamia. The expedition unearthed thousands of pounds of artifacts and compiled a detailed stratigraphic map of the settlement. It was there that they stumbled upon an anomaly that forever changed our understanding of the chronology of this vast region. Mainstream science regards the findings at Tel Leilan as a classic example of a city's destruction by natural disasters. Archaeologists discovered a so-called burn layer that clearly separated a period of prosperity from a period of desolation. This explanation is consistent. It is also applied universally. As a way to never question whether a claim is true, it is assumed that during a drought, the city's wooden and reed structures became easy prey for fire. Furthermore, the thickness of this vitrified layer reaches nearly 1.5 feet in some parts of the excavation. This suggests that the thermal impact was not only extreme, but also incredibly widespread. An enormous amount of energy was released almost instantaneously, completely melting the top layer of soil. No known Bronze Age technology could have produced that much heat over such a large area. We are seeing the result of an event that goes far beyond the natural combustion process of simple hydrocarbons. Samples of molten earth from Tel Leilan are currently in geological laboratories in the United States. They weigh dozens of pounds in total and are fully available for independent retesting. Any qualified physicist can examine the structure of this slag and confirm the temperature parameters required for melting. These rocks are not an abstract theory. They are solid pieces of documented physical reality. They demand an explanation that does not rely on the tired theory of ordinary burning wooden huts. The scene of destruction in Tel Leilan is completely devoid of any traces of a military invasion or a traditional army siege. There are no breaches from battering rams, no layers of arrowheads, and no mass graves of the city's defenders. The settlement simply ceased to exist overnight under the impact of a colossal, directed heat wave. The inhabitants left behind nothing but the melted foundations of their own stone houses. This corresponds exactly to the description of people who leave no corpses from ancient translated texts. We see a direct correlation between Sumerian documents and the stratigraphy of this specific archaeological site. The official version completely ignores the temperature paradox, preferring to attribute everything to the effects of a prolonged climatic drought. But a drought could never melt sand at a temperature of 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. This layer of burning is physical evidence that the history of the Akkadian Empire hides a dark secret. To understand its true scope, we need to examine another set of rigorous scientific data. Our third step takes us to the climatological archives. where samples of sediment and soil cores are stored. Specifically, we are interested in materials collected on the Habur Plains and currently stored in the laboratories of Yale University. These long cylinders of compressed earth represent a detailed chronicle of the ancient climate in the Middle East. They were extracted from depths of several dozen feet using special heavy drilling rigs. Every inch of such a core contains information about the chemical composition of the atmosphere in a specific calendar year. The official position of climatologists is based on the premise that environmental changes always occur gradually. Scientists argue that shifts in isotopic composition are caused by natural cycles of solar activity and ocean currents. This interpretation is reasonable, since the planetary climate is indeed a vast and inertial thermodynamic system. It takes centuries for precipitation levels to change significantly over an area of millions of acres. Normal climate graphs always show smooth curves of temperature fluctuations and overall humidity levels. But data from cores dating to 2154 BCE break this established mathematical model. On the graph of carbon-13 and oxygen-18 isotopes, there is no smooth transition or slow, predictable decline. Instead, instruments record a vertical jump that occurs literally within a single short geological season. The isotope ratios change so abruptly that it looks like an error in the calibration of laboratory equipment. However, multiple retests confirm the absolute accuracy of these shocking initial chemical measurements. Comparing this data with tablets from the British Museum gives us a frighteningly coherent historical picture. Sumerian chroniclers described a sudden cataclysm that permanently deprived the Earth of its natural ability to regenerate. Isotopic analysis shows the total destruction of the normal carbon cycle at exactly the same moment in time. The soil became chemically dead as intense thermal radiation scorched all beneficial microflora. This is the physical embodiment of the Earth that never returns to life, recorded in the instrument readings. The weight of this evidence rests not on translations of ancient languages, but on the rigorous mathematics of spectrometers. Mass spectrometers cannot invent myths. They merely count the number of atoms in the soil sample provided. The detected isotopic spike has no parallel in the history of the Middle East, either before or after this cataclysm. It is a unique anomaly that is firmly tied to a specific coordinate in time and space. To ignore this peak on the graph is to consciously turn a blind eye to the most crucial piece of this puzzle. The core samples are securely protected in glass flasks in climate-controlled rooms within the United States. They are documented, cataloged, and available for study by any researcher with the appropriate security clearance. The physics of these samples directly calls into question the theory of the Akkadian Empire's slow decline due to bad weather. To definitively link these geological anomalies to ancient texts, we need the final piece of the puzzle. We need to read exactly how the gods describe the process of activating this colossal instrument of destruction. To understand the nature of the catastrophe, we must turn to texts found in the religious capital of the Sumerians. The Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago houses clay tablets excavated from the ancient city of Nippur. They contain detailed theological debates and direct orders issued by the supreme deity named Enlil. These documents occupy several shelves in the repository and date from the period immediately preceding the fall of Agade. They reveal the details of exactly how the decision to destroy the center of the Akkadian Empire was made. Historians view these texts as an attempt by the priests to justify the fall of the capital through political intrigues in the heavens. Official science asserts that the gods always serve as convenient scapegoats for explaining large-scale natural disasters. This interpretation is well-founded, since ancient people did indeed attribute all incomprehensible phenomena to divine will. Thunder, lightning, and floods were always considered manifestations of the wrath of the inhabitants of the local polytheistic pantheon. It was advantageous for the priests to monopolize the right to explain the causes of any large-scale disasters or social upheavals. These Nippur tablets are light in weight, but their information density surpasses that of any other ancient sources. They record not the emotions of frightened peasants, but a cold account of the application of force on a colossal scale. Enlil does not merely punish the king, he carries out an operation to completely destroy the infrastructure of an entire region. The text states that the weapon stripped the skin from the earth, which is an accurate metaphor for the vaporization of the topsoil. It is precisely this vaporized layer in the form of microscopic spherules that we found in the Yale climate cores. It is important to emphasize that the Sumerians clearly distinguished between natural phenomena and the use of so-called weapons of the gods. They had separate words for drought, flood, earthquake, and a strike of ordinary atmospheric lightning. But in the case of a god, they use a unique term found only in texts describing total destruction. This is linguistic evidence that they encountered a phenomenon without parallel in Earth's natural world. They invented new words to describe a previously unseen level of technological or physical destruction. The University of Chicago documents contain no metaphors when it comes to the physical parameters of the device used. The weapon is named as a specific object that had to be brought to readiness before its combat use. This implies the existence of some mechanism or technical procedure necessary to initiate the process of mass destruction. The ancient gods appear here not as spirits of nature, but as operators of a complex destructive system, and the result of their actions left a physical scar on the planet's surface that has not faded over millennia. We have reached the point where scattered facts are beginning to form a single, frighteningly logical picture of what happened. The texts describe the technology, geology confirms the temperature, and chemistry records colossal changes in Earth's atmosphere. Each of these clues, taken separately, could be dismissed as a coincidence or a translation error by linguists. But together, they create a body of evidence that cannot be ignored within the framework of honest scientific inquiry. We need to piece all these elements together to see the true scale of the ancient cataclysm. The time has come to assemble all the presented clues into a single chain of irrefutable material evidence. We have analyzed artifacts whose combined weight exceeds hundreds of pounds of clay and excavated ancient soil. Every detail has been verified against strict criteria of time, exact location, and physical feasibility. The picture that now unfolds before us demands the utmost objectivity and a very honest perspective. We must set aside preconceptions and look exclusively at the measurable metrics established by science. Climate cores reveal to us the planetary scale of this localized, catastrophic Bronze Age event. The isotopic spike in the Earth's layers occurs without any prior gradual change in environmental parameters. Microscopic spheres of molten rock confirm the ejection of vaporized soil into the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere. The date of this spike coincides perfectly with the period of the fall of the Akkadian Empire in the ancient Near East. Instruments record an instantaneous shift, not a slow degradation of the ecosystem due to a lack of rainwater. Cuneiform text, documenting unquenchable fire. Documented. The Tel Leyland burn layer vitrified at high temperatures. Documented. Isotope anomalies, aligning exactly with the year 2154 BCE. Documented. No explanation exists for why all three point in the same direction. We are faced with a systemic failure of traditional science to acknowledge the obvious connection between these documented facts. We stand before an event that forever changed the course of human civilization, An empire that controlled millions of acres of fertile land was wiped off the face of the planet in the blink of an eye. This was not a natural decline, but a violent interruption of life brought about by an energy of colossal power. The traces of this impact lie literally at our feet, waiting for us to ask the right questions. It is our duty to follow the facts, wherever they may ultimately lead us. The instrument of destruction described in the Sumerian tablets is not a product of the human technology of that time. No Bronze Age civilization possessed the knowledge to create a directed thermal weapon. However, the presence of physical traces of such a weapon's use is a statistical and indisputable geological fact. We see the result, we read the instructions for use, but we do not know the creators of this mechanism. This gap in knowledge frightens the academic community more than anything else, forcing them to remain silent. Our journey takes us back to the cool halls of the British Museum in the very heart of London. We are once again standing in front of the display case where the plaque with catalog number K.108 is kept. This small piece of clay, weighing half a pound, now looks completely different. It no longer seems like a collection of ancient tales or poetic metaphors about the wrath of imaginary gods. Now, it is a rigorous documentary record, every word of which is confirmed by the results of modern, independent geological research. We have come a long way from reading cuneiform to analyzing chemical cores from Yale laboratories. We have seen how the Sumerian term for unquenchable fire transforms into the molten sand of Syria. We realize that the words about the dead Earth signify a sharp change in isotopes within the planet's stratigraphy. The ancient text turned out not to be a myth, but a precise guide to understanding the physical, archaeological anomalies that have been discovered. This piece of clay holds the key to the greatest catastrophe of the early Bronze Age. The history of the Akkadian Empire is not a tale of bad weather and a poor harvest of ordinary grain. It is a chronicle of humanity's clash with a force that lay far beyond its comprehension. The inhabitants of Agade fell victim to a cataclysm that wiped their civilization off the face of the earth in the blink of an eye. Their demise was documented by surviving eyewitnesses with the utmost precision and incredibly harrowing detail. And these documents have reached us through the millennia without the slightest distortion of their original meaning. Today we possess technologies capable of verifying every word on these ancient clay tablets. We can measure the melting point of stones with an accuracy of 1 degree Fahrenheit. We can analyze the isotopic composition of the air that people breathed 4,000 years ago. Science has given us the tools to confirm what the ancient priests sought to convey to their descendants. Refusing to use these tools is a crime against historical truth and basic common sense. The investigation into the destruction of the city of Agade does not end with the archaeological evidence we have analyzed. Museum storerooms hold thousands of untranslated tablets awaiting the attention of qualified independent researchers. Hidden in the sands of Mesopotamia are dozens of unexcavated cities with similar layers of thermal mass destruction. This story is only beginning to reveal its true scope to a broad global audience. We stand on the threshold of the greatest discovery in the study of humanity's authentic ancient history. We have examined the provided figures, verified the chronological dates, and analyzed the chemical composition of the ancient soil. All the gathered facts are laid out on the table, forming a clear body of evidence for the application of colossal force. Each viewer must draw their own conclusions from this body of scientific information. My task was simply to show you these documented physical anomalies. The plaque is on display in a glass case in London.